Hey guys, this is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us on the Thrive Bites podcast. This is season 4, and we're so excited for you to be here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Colin Zhu, double boarded in family and lifestyle medicine, and I interview the best and most passionate health and wellness experts of the industry on this platform. And we talk about plant-powered living, emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And this season, we're taking it live, we're taking it on multiple platforms, and we're taking it as a Q&A discussion as well as our interviewing of our guests. So we're super stoked about this, and please remember to like and subscribe down below, and we will see you. Welcome to the next episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thrive Bites podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. You can be anywhere in the world, and I really appreciate you spending just a few moments of your day to join us. And today we have a very, very special guest and a very, very special topic. I'm sure that most of you can relate on some level. And it's how to practice mindfulness. And I can't wait to dig into this. The next speaker that we have for this week, her name is Dr. Rashmi Shram. She is a board certified family physician, a certified coach, and a meditation teacher. She is the founder of Optimal Wellness, a coaching platform where she helps busy professionals tap into inner peace and power so they can live more energetically and purposefully lives. I just literally messed up all the grammar there. Anyway, so without further ado, please say hi to Dr. Rashmi. Hello.
Hey, Colin, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You and I have been, definitely been working together in other aspects, and I'm super, super glad for you just to take some time out of your busy day to join us. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. How about you? It's my pleasure being here.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. I am very, very looking forward to this topic. I think mindfulness, personally, I think is very, very needed, especially during a time like this. And yet, there's a lot about it that we need to kind of, in a way, dissect and really break it apart to really strategize on how to best use it, right? How to best apply it, how to best implement it. But I think that with social media, with everything that's going on, it could just some people might think of it as just a hashtag or maybe just a trend, and it is way more than that. And you are a full-on practitioner yourself. You've helped so many patients with it. I see you on your accounts, and always in such a calm and collected, manner. But I also know that, we're also human as well. And, maybe that comes from places of, maybe pain, maybe struggle, maybe low points, that we all experience living the human experience. So to start off, why don't we talk about your origin story, about how you got from point A to point B, how you, if you can share, how you got into mindfulness and making it a practice, and then ultimately making it a part of your professional career.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made so many really good points, and I can't wait to touch on each of those as we talk. So my story is similar to many others. One difference might be I was actually born in India, and I lived in a very large extended family until I was 12. And in that setting, I was exposed to a lot of spirituality, a lot of meditation, a lot of mindfulness. And so it felt like home for me. And then at the age of 12, we immigrated to a very small coal mining town in southwestern Virginia. It was very rural, and there was really no semblance. There was nothing that was similar from my urban Indian upbringing to where I spent my adolescence. And so a large part of my adolescence and further was just me trying to adapt and figure out how to kind of best fit in and not stick out, just like every other 12, 13, 14-year-old. And in that process, I really forgot all about meditation, mindfulness, all of that. And then I went to college at the University of Virginia, and there was a small group of people that they were meditating, they were practicing mindful living. And so I really enjoyed that. So I got back into my meditation practice. And fast forward to medical school and then residency and further on, there really was no semblance of me practicing any kind of meditation or mindfulness practices per se, not on any consistent basis. And I found myself about, 15 years ago with a couple of young kids and working some crazy hours. My husband was working crazy hours, and I was living in a way that didn't make any sense to me. I was always exhausted, wasn't sleeping well. I was distracting myself in every way possible. I was not taking care of myself at all, mind, body, or spirit. And the consequences started to show up for me, years and years and years of living like that. And for me, that those really showed up as a lot of anxiety, a lot of insomnia, that I tried to buffer with a variety of things. They weren't working for me. A lot of irritability. I mean, people just couldn't speak fast enough for me. It's just like, why are you talking so slow, dude? What's going on? There was just a lot of this movement without getting anywhere. And ultimately, I started to get physically sick as well. And so I started to have these chronic daily migraines. I was having a lot of digestive issues. I mean, all of these we can account to for chronic daily stress if we're not really actively working on something to take care of ourselves. And so at my lowest point, I was really pretty miserable. I wasn't tolerating the medications. My kids weren't really getting the best mom. Of course, because we're physicians, we never really show that at the workplace. So that was okay. But everything else was suffering. My marriage, I mean, everything else was suffering. And I remembered some of my best times, some of my most healthy times mentally and emotionally were when I had a consistent meditation practice. And so I went back into that. And for a few years, it was very touch and go for me. I would get better when I meditated, like my migraines would go away and I would feel better. And then I would forget about it. And then like 6 months later, it would come back and I'd meditate for a while again. And so it was like, it was like a crisis meditator. And so it was about 7, 8 years ago when I just said, nope, I'm doing this for good. I doubled down, and it was a very consistent, daily, deliberate, intentional, conscious decision that I made to meditate every day and to really switch the way that I was thinking about my self-care and the way that I was thinking about my mental and emotional well-being. And so that's when my trajectory really changed very, very drastically. There was kind of this inflection point as I started to get better and better and better. Things started to expand for me. And so I went back, I did deep dives into meditation, mindfulness, Ayurveda, and I got a variety of certifications. And, when I was doing this, I wasn't really thinking I'm going to teach. Like when I was going through my teacher certifications as a physician, I was like, this is really great. I'm going to figure out how to integrate this into my patients' lives. And so let's just see how it goes. But really, the truth is, I was in a very busy, production practice. I couldn't teach. And so eventually what ended up happening was I did have to make the very difficult decision to leave my production practice. And I started my own, I'm also a coach. And so it works really well. So meditation and coaching, the mindfulness aspect of it, along with coaching, which is really mindset. So mindfulness and mindset works really, really well. And so kind of coming back to this place of living more mindfully and meditating regularly is almost like a full circle for me, if that makes sense. And it feels very natural for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's so many different points that I would love to tease out for there. Number one, I think, this is what a lot of us, I won't speak for everyone, but, I know for me, to be able to start from a pain point, a frustration, or going through your own personal struggle and then finding, a healthy solution and being able to use that as a tool, one of the tools as part of your arsenal to help others is such a profound, way. In my opinion, I think that will make you has been making you, a wonderful provider, because you come from a lived experience of understanding what someone else is going through, and I think that's one of the challenges of being human from day to day is really not connecting the dots, only seeing the surface level of what people, say or do or not say or not do, and then say to yourself like, oh, I can't really relate to this person in this way, when everything under the hood per se, we're exactly the same, even down to our human genome. What I'm saying? Like, we're just, we're very, very, very similar. um and so, I'm so glad that you've been able to kind of use that for yourself and now your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are right. And one of the basic sort of tenets within, meditative practices and meditative ways of living is that we are all connected. We are all one, literally. We are one. We are all parts of one. And so the more I think we examine ourselves, the more we find, just like you said, that we are really very alike, more so alike than we are different.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's super, super important. For me, I found that to be true, and it constantly got reinforced through my traveling. I have a huge passion of traveling, especially, pre-COVID. And, the more different human beings from different parts of the world that I interacted, I realized, wow, our lived experience are actually very, very shared and similar. So, but yeah, let's go a little bit deeper into what mindfulness is. Can you give us your definition of mindfulness? And in your opinion, what was the original intent of it, do you think?
Yeah, so let's really make this super super clear. So we'll talk about what mindfulness is and what meditation is, because we don't want to quite use one and the other. So mindfulness is an incredibly simple thing. It is very very simple. The understood definition that most people will share is a version of something like this. Mindfulness really is just paying attention to this present moment that we're in right now on purpose, without judgment, and with curiosity, right? And so no one really came up with it per se. This is a way of being. So if you look at little kids, they are already always mindful. They don't have to try to be mindful. They are already always mindful. Every single human being was born being mindful. We were not judging, and we were curious, and we were living in this present moment. And the opposite of that is worrying about the past or thinking about the future without really being in this moment. It's we do this all the time. We might be having a conversation and or watching a show, but we're on our phone, or we are talking to someone in real life and we're on our phone. We're not really there. We're not really paying attention, or we're bringing in a lot of judgment and forgetting that we can be curious beings. And so even though it's very very simple, it is actually not easy. So we have to kind of practice that. And so that's mindfulness. There's a lot of different ways that we can think about mindfulness. And so I'll tell you what meditation is. Meditation is also incredibly simple. It is literally just going from activity into stillness. That's all it is, right? We're not creating the stillness. We're not creating the silence. It's already always there, and we're just tapping into it. And meditation is just a formal practice of mindfulness, right? So it's a formal practice of being in the present moment, whether you're paying attention to a mantra, a guidance, or your breath. It doesn't really matter. It's that you're paying attention on purpose, and you're bringing your attention back every time your attention goes, because your attention will go, and you're not judging. You're not like, oh, is this a good meditation? I don't know if this is a good meditation. Am I doing this right? You got to let that go. And there's got to be some curiosity. Like, what might show up for me right now? I don't know. And so mindfulness is a way of being, is a way that I think of, and we can absolutely practice being that way. And I think a lot of us do mindful things, and I'll get into how sometimes. And meditation is really the fastest way to build up our mindfulness muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So we meditate not because of the experiences we have in meditation, although we can have some really blissful experiences. We meditate for the vast majority of us to see how we can integrate it to the rest of our lives, to see how we can become more mindful. And part of that is just expansiveness, because when we stop judging and we stop allowing a lot of energy to go towards that, and again, this is not easy to do. This is a practice, because we are conditioned to judge. This is good, this is bad, this is pretty, this is ugly. I mean, all of these things. Then we actually can find more energy in our lives for so much other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have definitely personally have I totally resonate with what you're saying. You know, I've studied a little bit of Vipassana meditation. I do my best to be mindful, to be more present, and like you said, and other episodes that I've had with conversation with experts is, the past is no longer there, the future is uncertain, and honestly, the only thing we have, is the present moment, and that's why it's called a gift. For me, I guess a natural, you mentioned curiosity. A natural question that I would have would be, how is it? I don't know if it's due to our anatomy or evolution, but how is it so easy for humans to kind of, have distracted ourselves in this way, right? Like if we start off, you were mentioning about kids. What I think about is animals, actually. Animals to me are always mindful. I would presume they don't think about the past, or the future. They're very, very present, right? Like having a dog or a cat. How is it that humans have come into this way where, it's so easy for us to, get away from that? If that's, it sounds like our natural way of being.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what tends to happen is conditioning, societal conditioning. And, this didn't just happen, right? So, meditation, we can find meditation practices that go back at least 5,000 years. I mean, at least 5,000 years. Meditation is part of every wisdom tradition in the world. And so, it just so happens that the kind that I teach come from the East. And so, when you think of what evolutionarily gets passed down, it's usually not things that we don't need. It's usually things that we do need. And so even thousands of years ago, people were still finding ways to get distracted. Of course, it's way, way, way easier for us to get distracted. But it turns out that we function at our best when we pay some attention to this present moment. When we, it's of course normal for us to automate some things. And so over time, and certainly when you look at studies over what's going on with chronic daily stress, and there is way too much literally all around the world. It used to be somewhat protective in some of the Eastern countries, but now with this kind of development and with COVID, the numbers are really off the charts. But really over time, particularly when the Industrial Revolution happened and we didn't have to go to bed at any particular time, right? Like before we had lights and things, like it was dark. Like if you've ever gone camping, and I love going camping because I sleep so well when I go camping because it's dark. There are cues. We have to listen to those cues, I'm not going to sit there. I mean, I don't have any signal. I don't have, and so living that way is simpler, of course. It's not that we have to live that way to be mindful, but what can happen is these layers start to add on, generally from about age 6 or 7 or 8. And if we're not careful about removing some of those layers, they can just keep adding on and on and on and on and on and on. And so sometimes when I start to work with somebody, either one-on-one or even in groups, to even get to that core silent space, sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. But the truth is it's already always, always, always there. And so we have figured out with our gigantic frontal cortexes or cortices how to distract ourselves, because guess what? When we do that, we get these little dopamine hits that are really quick and fast. Yeah. And we kind of want that one more time. But the truth is, if we were to go back and look at what happens during meditation, and this is in beginners as well, and you don't have to be any kind of like high-end meditator, as if there is such a thing, we start to see the dopamine levels go up within 3 or 4 weeks. We have to meditate for about 3 or 4 weeks regularly before we see that. We start to see serotonin levels go up. I mean, endogenous serotonin, endogenous DHEA, growth hormone, all of those really beneficial anti-inflammatory hormones begin to go higher and higher and higher the more regularly a person meditates. And so it's absolutely possible. It's not totally possible to stay indistracted all the time. That's not me at all. I mean, I think my family would tell you I'm like I can be distracted pretty quickly and easily, but I can also bring myself back. I mean, it's good to have some humor about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So I guess maybe it's due to an individual, everybody's different, but what is the original, I guess, desired effects, from practicing meditation or practicing mindfulness? Is it to, reduce anxiety and stress, be more present, or all the above? Like what was what do you think historically, has been the original desired outcome of it?
Yeah, and I love that because we're so outcome oriented. So you're going to
Yeah.
maybe be like, "What do you mean? What outcome are we looking for?" But if I were to pinpoint an outcome per se, and they wouldn't have really said that because that means we then become attached to the outcome if we think there's going to be an outcome. But one of the original intents of the ancient rishis and sages, and this is the Yoga Sutras and all of this other stuff, it was to quiet the mind so that our essential selves could be seen and we could
Mm,
connect to our essential selves. And to a certain degree, that is transcendence. And what
mm,
that necessarily translates for me, transcendence is not, flying above, whatever, but it is recognizing that we are, number one, not our thoughts. We're the witness of our thoughts. Number two, we're not our ego. We're not our intellect. We are really and truly these beings that can transcend all of that and
mm,
live in a really blissful, joyful way and work in a blissful, joyful way. That was really the original intent. So the original
mm.
yogis and the rishis and the sages, this is this has been recorded for thousands and thousands of years. So of course now we've had a little bit of like almost colonization of yoga and meditation, right? A lot of
Mm,
westernization, and so you can see people kind of splice it up here and there and lose some
mhm.
of its original intent. And they might say, oh, this is a hack for focus or whatever. But the truth is, meditation is not a hack. It is something that we didn't invent.
For
I
sure.
didn't invent it. I didn't discover it. I mean, it was, it's been passed down for thousands and thousands of years. And so the original intent, I would say, for the kinds of meditation that I teach is transcendence. But what I would say is that people that come to me very similarly to why I came to meditation, which was to get rid of some of my symptoms that were related to stress. So it might not be anxiety or insomnia. It might be just feeling stuck. It might be depression. It might be all kinds of other emotional issues that they're looking to get past. But there
Yeah.
is usually some kind of minor crisis that people are going to. And we can definitely fix that, I say, but we can also go way farther than that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For me, like yesterday, personally going through a low point, and I literally, put my phone down and I went for a walk for 3 hours. And this is something that I, enjoy doing. We were talking offline, and traveling is a huge passion of mine. And not having that as frequently as I would like to during COVID has definitely hindered me to some degree. And so having this walk, and not having any headphones, just pretty much not having any distractions, I was able to, hear, my footsteps again. I was able to hear birds chirping. I was able to hear bikers and cyclists, passing and whizzing by me, right? So for me, mindfulness is, a lot for me, it's a lot of silencing of noise and distractions, I'm saying, to be able to get more present. I think being more present, it takes somewhat of a focus per se, but I think a component, I'm sure you would agree, is to also bring down the distractions and minimizing it as much as possible.
I love that story. That sounds like such a healing way for you to treat your mind, body, and spirit, really, right? And that is
Hmm.
the most mindful thing in the world is walking. It is so healing. I do this a lot as well because my tendency is to put on my AirPods and to listen to a podcast or to listen to
Right.
music or whatever. And sometimes you're exactly right. You don't even hear your own footsteps. You don't hear the birds. You miss so much in life, and we end up living in this distracted way. So for you to find some healing and some solace in your really long walk where you were
Yeah.
just being mindful, you were noticing the sky, you were noticing the birds, you were noticing the cyclists. I mean, that is the definition of mindfulness. You didn't tell me you were judging this guy. You were saying, why didn't the birds sing in this
Right.
other way? You were just curious, like, what is the next step, right? And that's it. That's all. That, how simple is that, right? That's so
Yeah.
simple. It makes it sort of silly almost that we're even talking about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there was one time, I live, by the LA coast. And so, there was one time where I saw a seagull and he had what looked like, a mussel in his beak. And so I guess I was curious and maybe a little bit judgy and be like, why can't you just pick up something else, do something else for a change. No, I'm just kidding. But it's it's super important for me. That's the most refreshing. I think if anyone has seen the movie The Matrix, as much as it is fictional, it does garner a certain amount of curiosity about, like, why are we so plugged in? Why is society so plugged in into this illusion of a fabric of a world, and how are we continuing to allow ourselves to be distractful and take ourselves away? Like you said, we're just beings, all parts of the whole, right? But I think a part to understand that is to remind yourself to get back to connecting to it, getting back to connecting to the whole, and at least in my opinion, to be able to feel more alive. So
For sure, but it took a little while for you to make that decision, right? It takes a little while for me to make that decision to take my AirPods off sometimes, because I have all these like goals. I'm like, I'm going to get through 10 podcasts this week because I got to do this, this, and this. And actually, I'm going to practice my next video when I'm going on my walk, or, like, I'm going to call this person, I'm going to call that other person. Like, it's me kind of going through, like, I'm going to be productive on my walk, or
yeah.
I'm going to be productive right this very minute. When the truth is, if I were to just walk the way that you did, the real truth is that I probably will be more productive when I come back. But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
my brain doesn't believe that, because
Mm,
again, slowing down, taking the AirPods off, paying attention to this moment in very, very many ways, just like you mentioned, is very counterculture. It's,
mm-hmm.
in our like very goal oriented, outcome oriented, high stress environment,
Mm-hmm.
there's that conditioning that unless we're achieving, I don't know what you're here for.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's not even true, right?
And I don't even know, back in the day when the yogis were, developing this over time, how much of a component it is to unlearn this type of conditioning from society. Maybe back in the day, it wasn't as heavy as it is now because we're so bombarded. I mean, there's a billboard over here, there's a TV over here, there's like you're literally not advertised or blasted with something unless you're sleeping. And I'm sure some way, someone's going to get into your sleep and start advertising as well. But it's really just, quieting the mind and minimizing the noise. My other question, we got a little bit off tangent. Is what are the top two or maybe top three like misconceptions that you can help us debunk about
Yeah.
mindfulness?
Yeah, for sure. So with mindfulness, and it's really just become a hashtag, I would say. And so to really look past that and look at what it is, which is just paying attention to this present moment. And we can do anything mindfully. We can brush our teeth mindfully. We can take a shower mindfully. We can do the dishes mindfully. And certainly if we're talking to someone we love, or even just having a conversation with someone, let's put those phones down. Let's be right here in this present moment. When that brain is like, oh no, I forgot to do this other thing, just come right back to this present moment, and you'll start to see the benefits add up. And then there are lots and lots of misconceptions about meditation that I want to address as well. So with meditation, a lot of people think that you have to, number one, control your thoughts. Absolutely not. You do not have to control your thoughts. We start to notice the space between us and the thoughts. And so, the minute that we think we need to control something, we're not really meditating or being very mindful. We're really bringing our attention to something during meditation, whether it is a mantra that you are, working with, or your breath, or a guided meditation. And there is a huge component of non-judgment for that,
Mm-hmm.
especially not judging ourselves, and especially giving ourselves the grace that we might give to someone else. And so the more we practice that, the more we start to notice other things open up, like more gratitude and more compassion and empathy and altruism. And we've shown this in study after study. And so what I would say is, if you're interested in meditation, just give it a try. Just give it a try. Start with 2 minutes. Just close your eyes, notice your breath for 2 minutes. See how that feels for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super important because, I personally don't want it to continue to be a hashtag or trend because it connotates something short term, just like the word diet. We talk a lot about food and nutrition here on the podcast, and dieting is such a taboo of a word, at least to me, because it connotates something that you're going to get on, and then something you want to get off. And with mindfulness or meditation or anything under that subset, I think it's a great option to have as part of your arsenal for self-care. So I hope people that are listening, it is something that we can continue to practice, for as long as you see fit. So thank you for clearing that up. Guys, I'm here with Dr. Rashmi. We're going to take a 30-second commercial break. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, any comments, you just want to say hi to us or have any questions for Dr. Rashmi, please put it into the chat window, and we'll be right back after these messages.
My dream always had been to be a comedian. I think that laughter is a form of meditation. It's not about fixing ourselves. It's about learning who we are and why we operate the way that we do. And that can foster more self-love, and that can foster more self-care. And that can then turn outward into a life that more accurately and, smoothly fits who you really are.
All right. So here we go. So guys, this is, if you guys are just joining us, I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and I'm here with the lovely Dr. Rashmi, and we are discussing how to practice mindfulness. So Dr. Rashmi, I have another question for you. During this time, you had mentioned that the practice of mindfulness, the practice of meditation has been, studied and utilized for, thousands of years, right? And it's helped so much with stress, anxiety, depression, and everything related in all its forms. During our current times, for us, for this generation and this era has been a little bit unique, to say the least. Would you say that, to kind of visualize this or kind of take this as a, just another traumatic event, comparatively to other traumatic events that, humans, kind of experience throughout their lives? Or do you feel like this specific pandemic is something unique that we have to kind of do extra, that mindfulness or meditation cannot be utilized in the same way? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. So I think what you're trying to ask me is, hey, as we're hopefully moving out of the pandemic, which has lasted for 20 months and counting, no one would have predicted.
No one's keeping count.
No, not that anyone is counting. That you're saying, like, hey, can this fix it, or do we need to do more? And, I think that's a two-part question. So what I would say is, let me take the first part of that and say, how can meditation help? And one way that meditation can help is by helping us to process a lot of the stress, particularly chronic daily stress. So what I mean by that is what we see over and over again, even like I said, in first-time meditators, is we start to see more healing hormones show up. And that can be things like serotonin, dopamine, DHEA, and they can show up pretty quickly within 2 or 3 weeks. And we know that that can start to help us deal with stress a little bit better, for example. And they also decrease some of the chronic stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, all of those things. And the mechanism by which meditation works is that we're really just moving from that sympathetic overdrive that we generally live in and that chronic daily stress into the parasympathetic rest and restore response. And so you can imagine what happens then is the blood flow starts to change. There's all kinds of neurotransmitter changes that I just mentioned to you. And within the brain, we start to see very significant changes in even short-term meditators that can move blood flow away from the limbic system, right? The amygdala, the hypothalamus. So the amygdala is kind of our alarm bell. And truth is, we're not really there's no human that was programmed to have 20 months of chronic daily stress on top of the previously stressful life that we used to have before. And so that, I think, makes meditation even more important now as we're trying to get out of the pandemic. And so not only do you start to see less blood flow within that limbic system, you see more blood flow into the prefrontal cortex, which is where our higher intellectual abilities come from. We have more access to creativity. And what else happens over time when we keep meditating is the structure of the brain itself changes, and it changes dramatically the longer somebody has been meditating. And so the gray matter within the prefrontal cortex, kind of the parent brain, if you will, the executive functioning, the ways that we can become more resilient and get more gritty without necessarily feeling like we're falling down a deep, dark crevasse, all of those areas start to get built and built and built and built over time. So there is a significantly higher incidence and or noticing of being more resilient during stressful times when we meditate regularly. And when we meditate regularly, we also take that and integrate that in more mindful ways into our daily living. So I think, so for me, meditation saved me time and time and time and time again. But of course, it's not enough, right? What I think you mean is like, can I meditate and eat like the standard American diet and sit on my couch? Like, no, of course not. We want, it's really all about balance and integration. So meditation is an incredible mind, body, spiritual tool. And I think we should really, if anybody's suffering, it's a good idea just to try it. And you can try all kinds of different meditations. And there's so many different apps now. I actually have several short meditations and medium-sized meditations on my YouTube channel. They're all free and they're all evidence-based. And so what I think you're getting at is, hey, like, let's work on mental and emotional well-being, and also let's work on physical well-being, right? We have to work on relationships. We have to work on communication. I mean, there's the whole health component that makes us grittier and makes us more resilient and makes us stay in a zone of our genius, even when stress is hitting us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many, parts that I want to tease out, is the fact that you're absolutely right. As practitioners of lifestyle medicine, we, focus, on all pillars. Popularly and commonly, we love to talk about food and nutrition and what we put into our system, but it's totally true. I think mindfulness and, meditation is, a couple of great, tools to be able to use. We also have to remember to sleep well, to hydrate, just to reinforce relationships and continuing to exercise that resilient, muscle, per se, and continue to be adaptable and pivot, especially now, more so over the 20 months, right? And you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I had to pivot, so it's like taking, anyone that dances out there, it's like a ball and chain and, pivoting and, and it's just very, very important. The next question I have is, you had mentioned, you have some resources, on your end, right? How does one get started? Is it as easy as, like, for example, I have no affiliation with this, but like, turning on Headspace, and starting like that. I have heard of a lot of great, apps. Is it important to do it one-on-one? Is it important to do it in a group setting, guided? Like, how would you suggest to get started if someone is curious to start?
Yeah, I think it really depends on what somebody's looking for. So if somebody just wants to try it, like dip their toes in, check out, like I said, just my quick videos, because, those are really, really easy. You can definitely try Headspace. You can definitely try Calm. I think there's also 10% Happier. Chopra also has an app. So there's no end to the amount of really good apps that are available to us now, especially as people start to recognize the power of meditation. So it really can be just that easy. But just like everything else, as we consume more podcasts and books and things like that, we kind of get to like a little bit of a stopping point, right? If and you're like, oh, well, I kind of want to go a little deeper. And that's when, look at live groups, look at recorded groups. And so I offer a live weekly meditation session with the group every single week. And I have for months and months, and we're still going all the way till 2022. So that can be kind of fun because I also, most of these programs also offer like, hey, you know what? I got this weird feeling during meditation. Did you get that too? And so, oh yeah, I've been feeling this. I thought I was just the only one. And so there can be this community and this kind of communion that can happen when you're meditating in a group. And then one-on-one is really what the reason that a lot of people come to me is they kind of want to bypass like 5 years of hit and miss meditation. And so when they're like, I just want to get to where I want to get to, I want to call myself a meditator, and I want to be able to meditate effortlessly and daily and not have it feel like a chore. I work with them one-on-one, and that's really the outcome that they get. And so there's all kinds of different levels, and some people are fine with just the apps, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's helping them. There's not a thing wrong with that. But as one starts to go deeper, there's just more doors that start to open, then you may want to explore that a little bit more.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think there's so many resources that we have, and there's also totally a different topic, but a lot of misinformation. It's just an oversaturation of information. And it comes to a point where, you want to be able to kind of stop and, actually, apply and continuing to apply, because you don't know if it works or not until you actually have put some time into it, and we talk, as lifestyle practitioners, a lot of it, the core of it is lifestyle behavior changes, and that takes some time. I think the studies show anywhere from like 21 to 60 days to really, have some sort of change that can be solidified. So meditation can be one of those. So I definitely, encourage, for you guys to check out Dr. Rashmi's stuff. So this has been great. I definitely want to close out. My last question, I've been asking this for the past 3 seasons, and not consistently, but I definitely want to turn it to you. And, we are good friends, and I really, really appreciate you as a human being and as, just someone giving so much light to other people. And, we also need to talk about self-care. So my question to you is, besides meditation and practicing mindfulness, how else do you take the steps for you to continue to thrive?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been plant-based for about 10 years. My whole family is plant-based whole foods. And so that's a really fun way for us to bond and for us to stay healthy, for sure. I exercise every single day. It might not look the same every day, but, it's some form of either the Peloton, some kind of running or walking. It's, usually going outside. There's a huge point of me being able to connect with nature and really nurture that particular relationship that I have, that I always pay attention to. And then really I learned the hard way that we can't skip sleep. And so of course, I'm paying attention to sleep. I'm paying very close attention to sleep. I practice gratitude. I practice journaling. And I am very open about getting help and investing in myself, whether it's my mind, body, or spiritual health. And that's a new thing for me. It used to not be anything at all. And so self-care for me isn't really like a spa day. It's like making an investment in a coaching program that I know is going to help my mind, get to the next level, for example. And so I'm just really always trying to grow and always trying to get to that next level while still loving myself just the way that I am now. And this is new for me. This is not how I was operating in the world before.
And I love what you said about, not just is it new, but it's loving yourself the way you are. And I think, we do forget that, from time to time, myself included. And I think as healthcare professionals, and people, who are in, the healthcare system, we see it, others that, that our loved ones or spouses or family members that are in this healthcare system can see it, that there is a certain amount of, armor, that we put on ourselves, and we do our best to just show up to work, don't, cut the BS type of mentality, don't complain, no pain, no gain, just like go in and, do your thing. Right. And, for me personally, I'm reminded often, that we are also human, we're living a breathing, beautiful soul underneath with really good intentions. but sometimes we forget that, we can be a little bit off kilter, you know what I'm saying? And it could be as a fine balance, as a tightrope. I live, right near Santa Monica and Venice, and the weather's still holding up over here, humbly speaking. And sometimes you see tightrope walkers, just, from end to end of palm trees. And sometimes self-care, the balance between self-care and really falling into like deep depression, anxiety, without even knowing it, is that thin sometimes. So I appreciate you, letting us know what you do as a provider, and reminding us that it is a practice. It's not something that you just achieve like a video game. You just level up and, once you get to that level, you're done. It's something that you continuously, just doing, keep, practicing and stuff like that. So.
That's absolutely right. It's a practice. It's not a destination. It's a journey. Yeah,
for sure. So for those of the audience that are wondering on, how to reach you and, utilize your wonderful services, how can they reach you? And do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to connect with anybody that's looking to get a little deeper into mindfulness or meditation or coaching, mindset, any of that stuff. And so my website is optimalwellnessmd.org. And I am on YouTube, and it's just, Dr. Rashmi Schram, Optimal Wellness. And you should just be able to find me just by going into YouTube. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn. Love to connect with really anybody. And right now I've got, we're just added some in-person retreats. So anybody that's in Northeast Florida, you're going to be getting some more information about that. And I definitely have group programs that are always going to be available, especially if you want to dip your toes into meditation and something like Ayurveda, which is really lifestyle medicine. And just, one-on-one is coaching. And that is also really fun.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And I am so glad that you have so many options, both in person and virtual, to be able to reach. So definitely no excuse. If you're curious, continue to be curious, and please reach out to Dr. Rashmi Schram. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, my friend. You're always lovely, as always. And you guys, this has been another episode of Fry Bites. If you like this, please share, like, and comment. And if you feel this is a benefit of someone else, please let them know as well. And please say goodbye to Dr. Rashmi.
You guys, bye. Thanks so much for having me. Bye.
Guys, thank you so much for watching that episode. We hope you enjoy it. And please remember to like and subscribe down below so you can get continuous updates for future episodes and future guests. And we can't wait for this upcoming season. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next